What is going on? We have Hayden here. Hayden, can I give you the background of you? What company did you found, and also how'd you get into that as well?
Absolutely. So my name is Hayden Cardiff. I'm the founder and chief innovation officer here at Idelic. And at Idelic, our job is to help drivers come home safe every night. And that's not just the trucking organizations and their drivers that we impact and work with directly, but that's each and every one of us who share the roads with them as well. So we do that by providing a software that allows our customers to better understand driver behavior, integrate all the different systems, but more importantly, leverage technology like machine learning to highlight who's most at risk and why, and then give fleets the opportunity and the ability to assign corrective action and coaching to make sure that all those behaviors get corrected and the drivers can get back out on the road safely. So from a high level, that's really our main focus, and that's what we've been able to accomplish over the last 5 years. But man, the journey has definitely been a fun road. We actually spun out of a trucking company ourselves. And so kind of how this all came to be and got started, I was actually working as a consultant for Pit Ohio Express, large LTL trucking company here in Pittsburgh. I came to Pittsburgh for grad school at Carnegie Mellon, and then got to know the team there at Pit Ohio really well, and looked at a bunch of different projects for them. But the one that really caught my eye was trying to take this internal safety solution that they'd created called Safety Box and try to do something with it. License it off, sell it, do something, because they'd used it to great success. Pit Ohio is one of the safest fleets in the country for the past 2 to almost 3 decades. And so they have a phenomenal brand, and they offhandedly kind of sold this software to about 7 other fleets, but realized pretty quickly that they are in fact a trucking company and not a software sales company. And so with that realization, they were looking to do something different. So doing what any good consultant will do, you just jump in and do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people. So talk to every fleet that I could, from small 20 driver mom and pop all the way up to the largest fleet in UPS, right? And realize that everyone had the same issue. Everyone had just a ton of disparate data, no way to connect it, no way to be proactive in engaging the drivers, understanding risk as well as they thought they should. And so with that kind of understanding, we ultimately decided to spin out and create our own software company to help kind of attack this directly. So, we kind of spun out, we rebuilt that product from the ground up. Man, do I wish we had some initial funding in that spin out. We did not. So we bootstrapped it for a little over a year. During that time, we rebuilt that product to kind of how we thought would be much more commercially scalable, and added a lot of different things to it. We finally got a couple customers to buy into our vision, and we raised a little bit of money, and we were able to start not only paying ourselves, but also start hiring others, which was great. And so we've been able to keep going ever since. And we recently, back in March, just closed our Series B round of $20 million to continue to fuel that growth. So we're excited to keep growing. Oh, I think you're on mute there, Ty.
There we go. Yeah, first off, congrats on the Series B. 20 million is a lot of cash you're putting into. So first and foremost, congrats on that. And just the scale so far. On this is just in general. So you said you were a consultant beforehand. Were you in the LTL space before the consultancy, or was as a consultant, was it kind of your first touch into the driving space?
Yeah, so I actually helped to start another startup in the trucking space called Hyliion. So that was my first foray into trucking. So I'd already been had a trial by fire a little bit, as far as jumping right in and not having a ton of experience through that, but got up to speed quickly and really fell in love with the industry as a whole. I mean, beforehand, if you're not in transportation, or especially trucking, it's very easy to fall into this trap of, or just this mindset of, it's just trucking. Like, you pick stuff up here, you ship it down. Like, how hard could that be? But when you really start to dive in, it is $800 billion worth of goods being shipped around every single year. It is incredibly large, incredibly complex, and there's just so there's so many different, nuances and different aspects to it. It's really fun to dig into. So, that was, I got to know the team at Pitt, Ohio while at Halion, and then after I left, that's when they reached out and said, "Hey, you gotta come work with us for a little bit."
No, I love it. That's kind of like a lot of our resellers. So obviously resellers ship everything out, right? That's the 99% of their stuff. So the interest on this trucking side, it's been people have been asking me over and over. So I wanted to bring you on and kind of ask some questions on that. So first and foremost, what's the main driver of cost like involved in the trucking? Kind of break down. So obviously we see the pickup and we see the drop off, but like what's in the steps there that you people don't really normally see?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, you have to pay for the driver, you have to pay for the equipment, but like some of the next layers of costs that are absolutely tremendous that people oftentimes you can I don't know about overlook, but it kind of gets buried in some of the conversation. First and foremost, insurance. Like insurance costs right now are just going through the roof. It's astronomical how quickly that has grown. Double-digit growth nearly every year for the past 6 years as far as insurance rates. And so that is one very big expense that the industry is trying to deal with. And then right after that, you start to look into driver turnover costs, accident and claims costs, injury and work comp. Like those three come right in next succession. And those not only hurt your bottom line, but when crashes start to pile up, your brand erodes, your top line revenue starts to drop. I mean, everything else starts to get hindered. And so that your accident costs, your claims costs, those are good indications of, are you going to continue to see the growth that you want to see or not? And as we know, like driver turnover is one of the biggest and hottest topics, one of the biggest issues and hottest topics in the industry right now, because finding good drivers is so challenging right now. It's hard to keep them, and it's even harder to find them and bring them in. And everyone, the driver shortage is real. I know that's been a topic over the past decade. Is the fact that average median age of drivers right now, I believe, is 56.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's high. And so you're getting a lot more people retiring than new entrants coming into the industry. And so I sit on the ATRI, American Trucking Research Institute's Research Advisory Committee. And our job as a committee is to pull together and understand, all right, what are the top 5 research projects that we want ATRI to go in and look at throughout the course of the year. And three of the five things that we ultimately settle on, at least to propose to the board, were talking about how we can help new drivers come into the industry or understand better the impact of certain things that could potentially bring more drivers in. Like that topic was so heavily prevalent in those conversations just because it's such a big issue for the industry.
And is the driver shortage why everything stopped at the docks too? In terms of the LA docks and stuff, is it just the driver shortage? Is that the main cause of this whole pushback?
So I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things from a global supply chain,
Yeah.
The blockage in the canal definitely didn't help. You've got, a lot of issues around Corona and things just getting produced in foreign countries, and now a lot of things got turned on at the same time, and so now you're trying to flood the market again with a lot of products, and that kind of clogs thing up. But driver shortage and more importantly, just a lack of both drivers and also equipment are also hitting this at the exact same time, right? Like you start to look at you look at buying trucks. Like there's thousands of Ford F-150s sitting on lots unable to be sold because they don't have chips in them. Yep. Right? That same problem is hitting the trucking industry, right? Like there are different chips or converters or different mechanical pieces that in normal scenarios are a couple $100, now are being sold on places like eBay for $7,000-8,000.
Really?
It's bananas. It's because no one has them, right? So imagine it though, like you lose one little part that you can't find. That truck has to be sat until it comes in. So, I mean, we're talking to fleets and we've got customers that are sitting trucks for months on end for just because of one part, like not because the truck themselves is bad. They can't find one part. And so you couple that with the fact that, man, if we had drivers, we can put them to work. Yeah. I mean, everyone we talk to is generally down 10% from a driver headcount. And the only type of growth that's happening right now is through acquisition.
Interesting. And so, like, first and foremost, any resellers out there, this is all resellers to me. There, buy as many chips as you possibly can and make some good cash across the board.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, that's super interesting. So it's just a mixture of everything, right? That's kind of piling up. Do you think there will be a time when it will get back to normal, or are we looking at like kind of this pushback for a couple of years now? Because I know like we have tons of clients that are shipping from overseas or even locally, and the cost is like 3 to 4x. Do you think it's always gonna be that high? You said that there's.
Yeah, it'll fluctuate back. I mean, it'll come back, and that's the one thing. The question is when, and I think. I think there's some near-term things that people are doing to try to kind of combat a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, I think when some of the truck parts start to get unclogged a little bit, pay is obviously going up. And when you start like supply and demand oftentimes comes from an equity of payment. And so more, like when more people start to understand that the trucking industry isn't this uneducated and just like, bottom of the barrel type of job, like really good, incredibly educated, very like professional people work in trucking. Like I cannot tell you how proud I am to be able to service this industry just because I go around and I'm able to talk to drivers, and they are some of the best people, the most professional people. And like, we would do better as a society to kind of recognize the things that they do. Give you an example. I was just at the North Carolina Trucking Association's annual conference, right? Right before that, the truckload carriers, right before that, National Private Truck Council and the ATA, like each and every one of these conferences goes in and recognizes their best drivers. And it is amazing to see what these top tier drivers look like. I'm talking 3 to 4 million miles of safe driving. Million. The average driver can't go 3 years without getting into a crash. They're going 3 million miles, driving an 80-pound missile down the highway and doing it safely with 0 incidents. And that's while trying to dodge around all of us four-wheel passenger vehicles who are trying to speeding around and flipping them off. Their job is very challenging, and they're so good at it and such professionals. Like it's just really cool to see. And so I think I say all that to say, I think there will come a time when we start to shed light on that and start to highlight the fact that you can create a really solid career for yourselves going into transportation, becoming a professional driver. And as we do that, as we pull more people into the industry, things will start to balance out. Prices will go up from a wage standpoint, and we'll start to kind of hopefully level a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of brings up 2 topics. One, I know the trucking, just the industry in general, logistics is what, the second biggest industry in the world, or it's something massive like that? You're talking like 800 billion or something along those lines?
Oh yeah. I mean, I just asked like anyone listening, look around your house, your office. I challenge you, find something there that hasn't been shipped on a truck. You're not going to, right? Everything we have, everything we own, everything we use has at one point or another been on a truck.
Yep.
That's how our economy happens, right? You think about the pandemic, and like this is one thing that I think as an industry, I don't think we did a good enough job at really capturing, is the fact that like the trucking industry and truck drivers in particular were put in the spotlight and finally given a little bit of credit for what they deserve, which is keeping us moving, right? When all the crap hit the fan at the beginning of the pandemic, like we couldn't find toilet paper, we like shelves were empty, but guess who put their health and their, and their well-being on the line to make sure we had some semblance of normalcy as truck drivers.
Yep.
And so, it's something that I get really excited and kind of passionate about, because they don't.
Man.
Yeah, they don't get enough. They don't get enough credit, and it's one of the things that I think that we as the motoring public can definitely get a little bit more attuned to.
Definitely. And then you kind of talked about just like the driver shortage and everything along those lines. Is it kind of turned on? I know there's like the truck shortage, chip shortage, but is it even more demand since e-commerce kind of blew up and there's more shipping and direct shipping? Because I know like in the warehouse space, like warehouses are hard to find because there's so many e-commerce companies or people that are just like housing product and shipping it off.
No, absolutely. I mean, the last mile delivery segment of the market has just exploded, and it's not just your typical players, your FedEx, your UPS, your Amazons. I'm talking all of your major carriers are now just dramatically expanding their last mile. I mean, JB Hunt, Schneider, Werner, like all of your big carriers, even some of your local LTL, like a lot of people are jumping into that last mile space to be able to keep up with the trend of consumer buying. And that has, again, changed dramatically, changed the landscape of drivers dramatically. One of the nice things about it, though, is that a lot of those last mile deliveries are driving smaller vehicles, right? Sprinter vans, box trucks, non-class 8 DOT regulated vehicles. And why is that important? Well, it's because you don't have to be 21 to drive those. And so one of the biggest things that I think has been a hindrance in bringing new people into the industry has been the fact that to drive a commercial vehicle, at least interstate, right, between state lines, you have to be 21. And so, but between the time that people graduate from high school, 17, 18 years old, they can't immediately go into the trucking industry or transportation industry. And so they go do something else, whether it's college, trade school, or just jump into another profession, whatever the case is. It's hard to do something for 3 years and then change course and then come into the trucking industry. It's just not as easy of a transition as in, people, fleets going into high schools and saying, look, you can get really high paying jobs, good 401ks, good benefits, and have a really good long lasting career in transportation. Come on, instead of getting buried by thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars of school debt, come in and start making good money right out of the gate. And like, that's a really strong message. It's just from a tractor trailer standpoint, like you can't do that. I know a lot of the LTL fleets that we work with are starting to do an apprentice program where they come in, start working on the docks, then move into the Sprinter vans, box trucks, things like that, and then move them into class 8 kind of tractor trailers. But now with this last mile kind of explosion, that does afford a lot of people, especially a lot of people who were kind of in that gig economy, your Uber drivers, your Lyft drivers, things like that. Now you can start to transition to a last mile delivery type of vehicle and have a little bit more stability, a little bit more benefit in kind of a full-time job.
No, we all like when I ever hear like USPS drivers and just like local postage, they said like the last mile is super expensive. Is it that expensive, or is it is it just because there's only a few people and a few carriers? Obviously,
yeah,
you see like USPS has to go in the middle of nowhere, but normal everyday stuff.
Yeah, the answer is it depends, right? It depends. Yeah. And that's why these large carriers are starting to find the lanes that are profitable, find the lanes that they can come in and be very competitive from a price standpoint. Obviously, there are lanes that are not competitive and are not profitable, and that's where a lot of them will let their competitors try to take on those lanes, and they kind of focus on the things that they can do. That's you see the same thing a lot of times with private fleets, right? Private fleets meaning fleets that carry the goods for their parent company. You can think of Walmart, your CVS's, your Tyson Foods, things like that. That's their whole livelihood, is finding the most profitable lanes, the most consistent, well-run lanes, focus on those, and then third party carry the stuff that they can't do as profitably.
Yeah, I know we talked about the FedEx drivers. You're talking about the lanes just in general. So, do FedEx drivers have those lanes? Correct. It's not always FedEx as like the major company. There's like individual privately held lanes. Correct. And lanes, I'm guessing, are a certain delivery route that they do each and every day. Correct, or zip
Yeah,
code or something along
that's
those
right.
lines.
That's right. That's exactly right. And they can change. Like a lane could just be like a route, right? And like as a shipper, that route might change, right? I might have different stores that I need to deliver on different days, but some of those lanes, some of those routes might be profitable, some might not, and so you kind of pick and choose there. But yeah, you're exactly right. FedEx is one that has a good model that's a little bit different than some of their competitors, where they actually have service providers. So thousands of service providers that run and operate their own fleet, but under that FedEx DOT number. And so you have that the need to kind of help guide and manage a lot of those service providers, but they're out there recruiting their own drivers, kind of running their own companies and licensing their services to FedEx.
Interesting. And then do you think the gig economy in like the trucking industry, or just like you said, the last mile, or even maybe in the trucking industry, do you think that's going to get bigger, or do you think it's always in the trucking industry you need to have, because there's that supply and demand in terms of people? It's always going to be you hire direct, they work for you, and what do you think the future is?
Yeah, so I mean, in trucking, you have a much more regulated and a much more, I don't want to say professional, but like you have a much more you have a
More
a
ropes
much
and yeah.
yeah it's a lot more process and a lot more regulation of the gig economy, and that's your owner operators, right? Like I own a truck, I license my services to a fleet to run certain lanes or just carry freight for them. They essentially act as my broker, right? And so instead of going out onto the spot market and just trying to calling load boards and kind of doing it on my own, I can essentially dedicated work for a Hub Group or work for a Werner or work for a JB Hunt, whatever the case. And so then a lot of these larger fleets have an owner operator division where they come in and they essentially bring in owner operators to run certain lanes and essentially act as their distribution force. Obviously, there's a lot of legal and regulation going on with the line between company driver and owner operator. And so they're trying to make things very clear and distinct between those two groups. But that ultimately acts as your gig economy, but on a much more regulated scale.
No, very cool. And then, yeah, kind of, we have 5 minutes left. Kind of give you the background of, do you like what's the next steps you guys are doing? Anything else you want to touch on? And again, thank you for your time, and it's been super helpful, and I learned a bunch as well.
Yeah, no. So, we're obviously excited. I mean, again, like our goal is to make sure drivers come home safe every night. And that's always been our main focus. But one of the things our customers have really been pushing for is, we integrate into all the different systems that these fleets have, their electronic logs, their cameras, their dispatch, their HR systems, the FMCSA portal for inspections, violations, citations, like you name it. We're pulling it in and using that as a basis to identify risk and manage the workflows and all those different pieces. So we tie into all of this data. Now, the next step for us that our customers are really excited for is being able to tie in the operations data to that as well. Because what that does is it enables not only the safety teams, but also the operations teams, the driver managers, dispatchers, those people who are frontline engaging with the drivers on a daily basis. It gives them the ability to have a single place to see and manage drivers holistically, both from an operations standpoint, their driver utilization and their on-time delivery and kind of their cost per mile and all those different pieces that they take care of from an ops standpoint, alongside the safety, accidents per million mile, their telematic incidents, their inspections and violations, and all those different pieces. So being able to see that together is just going to dramatically improve the fleet's impact when it comes to engaging with their drivers. So that's first and foremost, that's happening right now. We're really excited to roll that out. But from a long-term standpoint, where we're really excited to head is into insurance. Like I mentioned, the insurance industry right now in commercial auto is just getting hammered, and the safest fleets are paying for it, right? Insurance just inherently prices at the mean. So if you're a safer, more reliable fleet, you're actually overpaying for the fleets that are costing the system the most. And so our goal is to be able to leverage our customers' good behavior and kind of good process and good data to get them better rates. And so that's one thing that we're really excited about and should be pretty transformational across the industry. So that is also underway and something that we're quite excited about.
Dude, love it. I got a question after the call when we were offline, dude. But again, thank you for your time. If anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to me, and I can always ask Hayden if you have any trucking questions. And again, man, thank you so much for your time, dude.
Absolutely, appreciate it.